Yeah, hi guys. This will be part 2 of the rod rebuild. So the rebuild of the old surf rod, MT7162 power rod. I just thought I'd come down to the park and give it a couple of casts to see how it goes. It's going actually great. So, you know, out to about 60, 70 metres with a number 5 ball, so that's not too bad. Yeah, so the next stage is to bind all those guides on. What I'll do now is go back and bind the guides on, put the clear coats on and finish the rod off properly. Hopefully I'll get that done fairly quickly because I want to take it away next weekend and actually fish with it. So get the old girl back in action again. I'm really looking forward to that. So this week I'll get it all bound up and clear coated, ready to rock and roll. Sounds great. So anyway guys, don't forget, like and subscribe, be great. Yeah, and be patient because they're fairly long videos with a fair bit in them. I'm trying to keep them short, but it's pretty hard to do. All right, thanks. And I'll catch you in the next part of this video. Cheers. Hey guys, Frank from 4xCCF. Yes, I'm out in the shed again and this is part 2 of the rod rebuild or rod restore, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, anyway, thought I'd give you a little bit of background of a couple of things if you want to get into rod building. Look, I did it years ago, so you know it was a fair while ago now, 30 odd years ago I was doing this stuff, and it's been a long time since I've got sort of interested in it again. And yeah, I'm kind of enjoying it. It's a bit of a hobby, and you know, if you love your fishing, it's a good way to make those old rods new again, especially your old favourites. I'll just show you a couple of the old, where it all started, and a couple of books that I bought way back when that's all you could buy was books. There was no other tuition you could get. You had to read a book. There's a couple here I'll show you. That's probably the one that started it all off. It was how to build a fishing rod. And that's going back a fair way. I'd hate to see that the actual date on the this one to when it was actually put into print. It doesn't actually say there that I can see. 1980, first published 1980. Anyway, that one, another magazine type book that you know, pick up the news age in those days. And that one was by Ian Miller and Steve Starling. Both guys are still around. Steve Starling's got a YouTube channel, well worth a look. Some great information there. You know, he's been around and done some awesome fishing, made some awesome videos, and still doing some great YouTube stuff. So you know, definitely have a look at his stuff on YouTube if you get a chance, if you're into it. Another one, Rod Crafter, which is, you know, a magazine style one. Very similar to the Rod Builder one, but produced by somebody else. And those, you know, the custom rod thread art, which is a Dale P. Clemens book. And that one goes back a long way, but amazing stuff in there on how to do decorative binding. And, you know, if you're really into wanting to get into that stuff, they're great books. I don't know if they're still in print. They may be. Same with that one, New Advanced Custom Rod Building. That's got all the tricks in there. I don't think it's changed much over the years, but classic information if you want it. Definitely worth, if you can find them, having a read if you want to get into it. There's probably others around, or there's lots of YouTube probably if you looked hard enough. A lot of American stuff around. You know, I got right into it for a while doing the thread art stuff. Oh, trying not to break the rod as I'm picking it up. Now this one, if I can show you without, don't expect expensive production stuff around here. It's all man-made, all me. That was this is an Albagraph number 5, classic blank in its day. It you know, they were beautiful blanks. It needs a rebuild, this poor old rod. It, you know, it got down to doing some, I don't know if you can see that very well, you know, there's some thread weaving. So that's a weave where you actually weave a design into the thread. That is time consuming, but you know, if you want to do some really interesting stuff, that's all in Dale Clemens' book. Shows you how to do all that sorts of stuff. And some more wrap patterns you can do, or butt wrap they used to call it. Weird name, but that's what they call it. And yeah, the old name, custom rod, Stroke Zone custom rods. And yeah, that definitely needs a rebuild. Some of the guides on this are in really poor shape, like that one. And I haven't used the rod for a while. The guide seems to be in pretty good nick, but just needs a rebind. That's one of the jobs coming up I'll get into. But yeah, so I'm going to continue on with this. And yeah, just about to put down, well, I started putting down the underbinding. As you can see, that's the first one for the stripper guide. And I'm going to go up the rod now and start putting all the rest of the underbinding. I'll show you one, and then I will continue to do the rest, and then show you how to put the guides on and filler coats, which is before you put the guides on there, you do a filler coat on that underbinding, then put the guides on, of course. And I'm just about to start the rest of that. See if I can get this knocked out. And you know, I'm a bit rusty, so it's taking me a bit longer than it used to. But anyway, I'm going to get into it and I'll show you how to do that bit by bit. Now, just to start off, I'll show you a couple of things like tools. Definitely need a scalpel, good piece of kit to have, and the scalpels are a lot easier to use in my opinion than trying to use razor blades or something. Now these, they're thread pushers, so you need something just to, you know, manipulate the thread as you're putting it on, push it in, you know, and also just to run over the top to level it out or even the thread out as you bind. I'll show you that while I'm doing it. So I made these out of spoons in the old days because none of these tools are available, but you can get them now online. The links I put in the first video I will put in again, because you can buy these thread pushers. They're probably made out of plastic now or something along those lines, but I made all these out of old spoons, you know, or you just raid the cutlery drawer at home, don't tell the missus of course, and you know, cut the spoon off and do a bit of grinding. You don't want sharp edges, you want a blunt edge, but just with a little bit of flatness to it so you can actually push the thread around. Another one, similar thing, it's got a scalloped end on it through here, so you can actually run that over the top of the thread and push it in. Also a nice pointed end. If you want to grind, you need a point. Again, out of an old spoon handle. You know, grinder and a bit of time, you can make one of those. Thread snips, you know, they're good, cutting your thread off. I've got a little grinding tool. This is actually a chainsaw grinder, but it takes a grinding head, and sometimes you need to grind the guide feet down at the edge here at the front through here, just so it's easy to get the thread to climb up over the front of the guide, because if it's too much meat on there it gets a bit hard to bind over it. This is a new Fuji, it's a bit hard to see I suppose, but you can see that end's been already ground down, fairly well shaped, so I probably won't grind those. The stripper guide is a bit blunter, this type of heavy stripper guide. I've done some work on that, but I'll probably have to put it on the grinding wheel. It's just still a little bit too steep, so I want a little bit more gradual climb from the front of the guide feet up, so I can bind over the top of it a bit easier. But I'll get to that when I go to put the guide on. Anyway, that's sort of a quick basic look at guides. Don't forget, need a ruler. I just got an old set square. Great for, you know, measuring. and it's clear so you can see through it, which makes it a bit easier. Anyway, that's a rough, and don't forget, you definitely need a roll of masking tape. Masking tape is very important. I cut off a whole little bits and pieces before I start, so when I need them, they're sitting on the binding lathe ready to grab and stick, because you'll need that to hold pieces of thread down as you do, you know, because you can't manipulate everything with your hands all at the same time, so that just holds the threads down. That's a quick look at some of the stuff. Yeah, now I'll get into, I'll lay down some underbinding and give you a look at how I do that, and then go from there. Alright, let's get going. Let's get going. Hell if I could talk properly, but anyway, there you go. Oh, another thing, nearly forgot. That is the thread, thread, I don't know what you call it, thread tray. It's got a little thread tensioner similar to a sewing machine. If you can see it, a bit hard to see. It might be a bit better. So that is pretty similar to what you have on a sewing machine. Just put some tension and holds the tension on the thread. I've got big rolls of thread, but I bought this stuff years ago, so you know I got enough to keep going for the next 20 years. I reckon I got a bit carried away sometimes buying things. There's a quick look at that. That actually rolls up and down through that channel, which makes it a bit easier that you can just start laying thread down a bit quicker as the lathe rotates the rod. There you go. There's some basic stuff. That information would be readily available again if you want to get right into it on probably much better training videos than I'm doing, but they're all on YouTube. You know, various ones you can find. Probably get into great detail. Mine's not going to be so detailed, but anyway, trying to keep this as short as possible. It's tough. There's a lot of little bits and pieces in this stuff that, you know, adds up when you go to do it. But anyway, all right, I'll get into it. Anyway, we're going to get into this. So first things first, I need to measure the length of the guide from tip to tip on the guide feet themselves. So the reason you do that, you want to make it the underbinding 1.5 times the distance, you know, the width of the guide, basically from one end of the feet to the other. So that was 52 mil. So that would be, half that would be 26. So add that to the 52 mil, gives you 78 mil. So I'm going to measure that at 78 mil, and center of 78 is 39. So I'll just put that on there at 39. And mark it at 78. Just around there. So this is not, you know, it's not doing engineering. You're not making bloody car parts or something. It's you're doing a bit of binding on a fishing rod, so you know it doesn't have to be down to the point of a millimeter. I'm going to do a little center wrap of gold in that, combined with the underbinding, just to mark the center, because you don't want to lose the center of your guide feet. You could probably measure it out, it wouldn't be a big deal, but you know, it just looks nice. It's just a bit of added decoration. And that's 5 mil, just center it in 5 mil and mark that out. So I'm just going to get a little gold wrap in there, and that can shrink down as you go forward. The one I've already done up the front here for the stripper guide is a lot bigger. It's 10 mil only because I wanted to get all flash. It's a big guide, so you know it looks kind of cool. But anyway, I think it does. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is get into actually running a bit of underbinding in that, and I'll just set that up. So first things first, you need to put, and I've got lots of little bits of tape on here. You want to start that binding off. So this is where these little pieces of sticky tape come in, a little masking tape, and this painting masking tape is pretty good because it doesn't leave a lot of residue and it comes off easy. So we're going to just put that on the blank. Now I'm just running it down the blank, and I'm just going to get a couple of turns on that just to start it off. So you can do that by hand to start off with. Honestly, you can go either way. It doesn't really make much difference which way you go. I'll just go that way for some reason. Who knows why? So we just want to get that wrapped around until it catches on, binds over the top of the thread that you've got on there, glued down with a piece of masking tape. Hopefully you can, this is when your little tools come in handy, and probably remember to keep that thread a little bit all set from where you're trying to put the binding down to start. It controls where it's going a little bit easier. So I'm going to just get that started. Try not to bind over the other thread that you've already put down. You want to just lay it down in a nice even form. The more even you can start this off, the better it goes on as you bind down the blank. You don't need to go too many wraps under there. Just to hold it on. That's a great thing about these binding machines, is you've got two hands free. You're not reliant on trying to hold the thread and do this. You've got a tensioner on there, you've got the thread on there. Remember, I've got big rolls of thread. There we go. Now get that started. Start laying it down. Now I'm going to just straighten that out a bit and pull it back, because that is probably where I'm going to put the guide, so I want it to be down underneath if I can. So I'm just going to pull it around till it's underneath where the guide goes. Like most, you want to finish all your thread off sort of underneath with the guide feet, not where you're going to put the guides, because you've got a nice flat surface when you go to put them on. There you go, that's pretty good. Pull it out so it's a bit squarer, and I'm just going to nick that off with the scalpel. I'll just put a bit of tension on it. I really think I need to get some new scalpel blades because it's a bit blunt. Anyway, there we go. That's how we got it started. Show you that now. Hopefully you can see it's just a little loop made out of, thread, the cotton you've got. I like to use a different colour just so it's easier to see. But that's just a little loop, and you use that to pull the thread through. And I'll show you that when I get to it. Good to have one of those handy. Good to have lots of little pieces of sticky tape ready to rock and roll, depending on how detailed you're getting. When you're doing decorative binding, you probably end up with a lot of those because you need to stick down a lot of threads. My machine has a foot pedal. See that? This sewing machine foot pedal. So that runs the binding machine. Put that on the ground, somewhere where you can get it easy with your feet. And we should be able to start doing that a bit quicker. Try not to go too fast, because if you're not used to it, and I'm a bit out of practice, and we just lay that down. moving the thread trolley slowly forward, trying to keep it as tight as we can. Until we get to the middle. Now this is where these little tools are an absolute gem. So we can push that in and level all the thread out. It just levels. We're just running along. That's a concave surface. All right, through there, and I'm just going to push that in just so it's all nice and tight and firm. Now, spin it around. Now I'm pretty close there, so I might just back that off a little bit. As I said, great thing about these machines is you've got tension on the thread all the time, so it's not as troublesome to try and hold a million things at once. Get my little piece of loop of cotton. Now I'm just going to stick that on one end, like that. And I'm going to roll that around so it's underneath where the guide goes and stick that on there. Now we'll just roll that up to where I want it, and to start the little centre bind, a double thread in the centre, and gradually bind that up to the centre. You don't need to have a lot of bind over the top of it or binding over the top of it, just enough. As I said, this is not rocket science stuff, so you don't have to be madly concerned about, you know, millimeters, and unless you're really fussy, and some people might be that fussy. And yeah, you know, once you get into it, it's like anything, you know, the more detailed you get, the better the job you get, of course. I'm going to lay this down together, and I think I can get that through there. That didn't work very well. So a little bit of gold. I'm just going to get that in there. Up. Pull that tape off with the loop on it. Put it through the loop. And pull it underneath that binding, like so. You leave enough out so you want to be able to grab that and pull it tight. Now I'm going to hold that thread and wrap the two threads at the same time, which can be quite painful. It's getting away on me a bit, but Now I've gone a little bit further out, so I want to push that in. Again, just push all that thread in, just levels it out, levels it up a bit, and there, that's pretty good. I'm going to try and cut that off there. Now, luckily this machine holds that thread, the maroon thread pretty well. And I'll just give that a bit of a snip. Now I just got to go over that. I probably should have went over the other side of that gold thread. That's all right. We can work with that. And don't be scared to put your fingers in there and hold things down. And again, these machines make it a whole lot easier to do that without losing the tension on your thread. Push it up a bit, so you just want to get it all nice, packed down a bit more. Any gaps you can just push in with your little thread pusher tool. And we just want to make that nice and firm, so what I can do then is move all that thread back a bit more, pack it down some more so it all sits alright. As I said, we're not building Elon Musk rocket ships. We are just putting some underbinding on a rod. I mean, this stuff can get really technical, and if you're making, I don't know how much a handmade game rod is worth these days, but you're probably talking thousands. If you're into that type of stuff with decorative binding and really high class or high end fishing gear, you'll get really refined at this. I don't even know who makes this stuff anymore. Jack Eskins used to be the rod binder in Cairns, who was did a lot of really high-end game fishing gears. Another guy that was very big in the 80s and 90s, and he made some absolutely stunning rods, like, just beautiful work, real craftsman. And he had a line of products, so I got some Jack Eskin clear finished I'll put on this. So anyway, look up that, Google Jack Eskins, and you'll find even more really good stuff about rod binding. Anyway, that's that. I'm going to trim that thread off and bind the rest of that up to the finish and show you how to finish off that bit of thread. If I can grab it, let's put a bit of pressure on that, trim it so it springs under a bit, do a couple of wraps, Get it rolling again. Get my foot pedal out. Back under my foot. Try not to get the speed wobbles up because I'm doing it too fast. Well, there you go. Did too fast. Went a little bit too quick. Just back roll that. Keep the tension on it. Pardon me. Nice gentle pace. We're just about 5mm off the end of that, where that wrap's got to stop. So again, you get your little piece of loop thread out, and what we're going to do is we're just going to put that at one end. Like so. See that? Underneath the thread, the binding thread, pull it out. Stick that on there. Now I'm going to move that a bit because I'd like to have that underneath where the guide goes rather than close to where the guide feet are going to end up. And you're dealing with thread and you've got a big man here, and sometimes that can be a real pain. You know. Anyway, as you can see, that's under there, ready to pull the thread through. Just going to push that in a bit more, pack it down. Really wasn't in the right place when I did that. So we'll pack it down some more. A little bit more angle on the thread. And we've gone past a little bit too far. Back wind it a bit. And format markers. Maybe got a bit excited there. There it is. Yeah, there it is. That's about it. Now, trim off, cut your thread. Don't let the tension off like I just did then. That was not so great shot. Pull it up a bit tighter. Cut the thread. I don't know if you can see that's it's hard to take film with this sometimes. Now, hold it with your finger. Hopefully I got that through the loop. I did. Put it through the loop. And your hands out of the way. And we just want to pull that through. There you go. Now, that's how you finish it off. So, I just push all that down. You can tighten that up a bit. Pull it a bit square, just tighten her up. We're just going to rub over the top of it with the face of that thread pusher. As again, it is curved, so that side's curved. You can just push the thread in nice and tight, and that evens it up a bit, gets rid of any gaps in the thread. And always push to the centre, so I push it all into the centre. There you go. Trim up that thread. So I'm going to pull that up. Pull it up with a little bit of tension, and that light is right in my eyes. And I didn't do a really good job of that. I might have to try and trim that up a bit more. The gold, the sparkly threads always seem to be harder to cut. And that's so it might just get the thread slips into it. Trim that up, which it did. Give it a little bit of a haircut, still sticking up a bit. There you go. Another one down. So I'm going to keep going with this and finish it off, and bind the rest of these, put the underbinding, and then I've got to put a filler coat on it, and then I can put the guides on. Cool. Well guys, I'm up to the, I'm going to put some filler on that underbinding. I've done all the underbinding, so I'm now going to put some filler on it, which is just a thread preserver and colour preserver. That's the one there, if you can see that. You should be able to. Anyway, that's just a basic one from the tackle shop. You could probably get better than that, but it'll do the job, and that's just going to seal the threads up on the underbinding and preserve the colours, which is a good thing, and kind of stops it from discolouring, but they will discolour with age, you know, it's thread, so it just discolours after 20-30 years. But anyway, we'll put that on there. Just give you a quick look at the underbinding. That's the stripper guide underbinding. It's all done. A little bit of gold trim in the middle of it. Sort of a double thread. You double the thread up in the centre, and that's the marks the centre of the guide, which is helpful when you're putting them back on again. Putting the guides on. Now, and at the top, I just put some nice flashy gold thread, so you know, hopefully that'll stand out in the dark. When you flash a bit of light on it, you can see the tip of the rod. But there you go. Now, next part is actually putting that sealer on there, and I'll paint some of that on. A couple of coats will do it. It dries pretty quickly. And cool. And then I'll guide the I will bind the guides on later. After that dried, after that seal is dried, then you bind the guides on, then put a sealer coat on top of that binding, and then you can clear coat over that. It's kind of a lengthy process. Anyway, I'll show you that in about 2 seconds. There you go, that's the stuff. Again, I'm just going to paint something. I've got a little brush, and I'm just going to use it straight out of the bottle. I'm just wasting or creating a bit of rubbish, so we're just going to put that on the binding and give it a good coat. Make sure she soaks in. just paint that on. Sorry, I've gone all quiet there. I figured I was somebody else in the room. I've got to talk to them. It's pretty peaceful down here. It's a nice way to spend some time, you know. It's good for men to do this type of stuff, or women, I suppose. Oh God, I better watch out, I'll get in trouble for being sexist. But you know, it's just nice to, it's like any other type of artwork or, you know, hobby. Something you can spend some time doing, just take your mind off things and put your mind into something else for a change. And you can get a little bit creative with it. There's lots and lots of patterns you can put in this stuff. It's absolutely amazing what you can actually do. And as I showed you earlier on the books on thread art, it's mind-boggling what's in there, what you can do, what type of thread art you can do. So anyway, we just get this good coat of thread sealer on here. Got a nice wet coat of that stuff. As you can see, it goes pretty, dries pretty quickly. And I'm going to soak it into that thread. Make sure it's really well covered. So you've got the whole lot of it. Just rotating the rod as you go, of course. That will do me. There you go. Simple as that. It's pretty well covered. I'll let that go off, put a second coat on it, and go through and do the whole lot. As I said, that'll dry, preserves the colours of the thread, and I think kind of shrinks them up a little bit too, so they tighten up a little bit. But that's what it ends up like. Once that dries, it'll, you know, I can continue on. So anyway, I'll leave it at that and keep going. Anyway guys, that's the end of part 2 of the rod rebuild video. There's another part to come, part 3, with we'll finish off binding on the guides and putting the clear coats on. Yeah, it got pretty long, so I had to trim it down a bit and put it in 3 parts, sorry. So yeah, it's fairly detailed. It's hard not to get detailed, because trying to show people just the little bits and pieces and little tricks and tools and so forth really makes it you know, they're quite an extensive video. Anyway, this footage is of the rebuild rod, or rod rebuilt, I should say, tied into a good fish. So yes, it works fantastically, and really enjoyed fishing with it after, you know, it had been in mothballs for, I don't know, 30 years or so. So it was good to get it back in action. Had a great fish that day on 2R Beach. And listen guys, please like and subscribe. We would really appreciate it. We'd love to get to that 1,000 subscribers. You know, you might get a few dollars back to pay for some petrol and give us some motivation, which would be fantastic. Anyway, hope you enjoy the video. Hope you enjoy the next video and any others we release. Alright, cheers guys. See you later.